In 1944, an American pilot falls from his damaged P-51 Mustang. On the beach, he encounters a Japanese pilot, and the two engage in combat. As they struggle, a massive creature suddenly appears, casting a large silhouette over them. In 1973, as the Vietnam War winds down, former British Special Air Service Captain James Conrad is hired by government agent Bill Randa to lead an expedition to map an uncharted region in the Pacific known as Skull Island, which has remained unmapped due to constant storms. Randa also recruits the Sky Devils, a helicopter squadron led by Lieutenant Colonel Preston Packard, with key members Major Jack Chapman and Captain Earl Cole, to escort them to the island. The group is joined by anti-war photographer Mason Weaver, who plans to expose the expedition as a covert military operation. Upon arriving on Skull Island, Packard's men begin dropping explosives developed by seismologist Houston Brooks to determine if the ground is hollow, despite Conrad's objections. Suddenly, they are attacked by a gigantic ape named Kong, who destroys the helicopters. During Kong's rampage, Packard locks eyes with the giant ape, filled with rage. With the helicopters downed, the survivors are split into small groups. Their only hope for rescue is a resupply team due to arrive at the island's northern end in 3 days. Confronted by Packard at gunpoint, Randa reveals his connection to the secret government organization Monarch and the expedition's true purpose, to prove the existence of forgotten monsters. Packard and his men bury their dead comrades and begin searching for the remaining expedition members, including Chapman. Along the way, they encounter a mother longlegs, which they defeat by cutting off its legs. Nearby, Chapman is washing his wounds when he sees Kong tending to his own injuries. Kong is then ambushed by a Meyer squid but manages to kill it and eat part of it. Meanwhile, Conrad, Weaver, Brooks, biologist San Lin, soldier Rex Livko, and Landsat employee Victor Neves meet the local Iwi native 44 with a Japanese pilot named Gunpei Ikari. Marlowe explains that Kong is the island's guardian, protecting the natives from skull crawlers, deadly subterranean monsters that killed Kong's parents. Marlowe reveals that Kong attacked the helicopters to prevent the bombs from awakening the largest skull crawler, the Big One, which would destroy everything on the island. After bonding with the natives, Weaver encounters a Skur buffalo trapped under a helicopter wreckage. She struggles to free the beast, but Kong arrives and saves it, exchanging glances with Weaver before leaving. Marlowe shows Conrad and the others the Gray Fox, a boat made from parts of his and Ikari's planes. They work on fixing it throughout the day. Meanwhile, Chapman encounters a spore mantis and fires at it, only to be killed by a skull crawler. That night, Weaver is approached by Conrad, who lends her his father's RAF lighter and tells her about his father's disappearance during World War II. The next day, Conrad's group sets off down the river in their now functioning boat. Along the way, they are attacked by leafwings, which carry off, dismember, and devour Neves. The survivors regroup with Packard, who insists on searching for Chapman, unaware that he's already been killed. Marlowe reluctantly leads both Conrad and Packard's teams to the Boneyard, a forgotten battleground between Kong's species and the Skullcrawlers. The group hides when the same skullcrawler that killed Chapman appears and vomits his remnants before leaving. After emerging from hiding, the creature returns, devouring Randa as he attempts to use his camera. The skullcrawler then attacks the group, killing many of Packard's men. Conrad fights off a flock of leafwings, disturbed by the skullcrawler using Marlowe's katana. Eventually, Weaver kills the beast by igniting an explosive gas pocket with Conrad's lighter. In the aftermath, Conrad informs Packard of Chapman's death. Packard reveals his plan to kill Kong to avenge his fallen men. Brooks warns that killing Kong would unleash the skullcrawlers, but Packard refuses to listen. Marlowe tries to persuade Packard with Gunpei's katana, but Packard knocks him aside, threatening to kill anyone who interferes. Packard and his men then salvage heavy ordnance at a crash site to lure and kill Kong, while Conrad leads the non-military personnel back to the Gray Fox to rendezvous with the resupply team. Later that night, Conrad and Weaver witness Kong approach them while scouting from a high ledge. Realizing that Kong is a gentle and intelligent creature, they decide to protect him. Explosions sound off in the distance, and Kong heads towards them, sensing danger. Knowing Packard's intentions, Conrad orders Brooks and Sand to return to the boat while he and Weaver, with Marlowe's help, resolve to save Kong. Kong finds Packard and his men at the lake and charges at them. Packard sets the napalm-laden lake ablaze, incapacitating Kong. As Packard prepares to kill Kong with explosives, Conrad, Weaver, and Marlowe intervene, leading to a standoff. Conrad and Weaver convince the soldiers to spare Kong, but Packard refuses, driven by his desire for vengeance. Their argument is cut short when a massive skullcrawler, the Big One, emerges. The group flees, but Packard stays behind, intending to detonate the explosives and kill himself, Kong, and the skullcrawler. However, Kong regains consciousness and crushes Packard. Injured, Kong is overpowered by the Big One, which then pursues the survivors. Cole sacrifices himself with grenades to buy time for his comrades, but the creature swats him away, killing him. Cole's sacrifice allows Kong to return and attack the Big One, smashing a giant boulder against its head. Weaver climbs a cliff and fires a flare to guide Brooks and Sam. Kong battles the Big One, using a tree as a weapon. The Big One entangles Kong in chains, but Brooks and Sen distracted with gunfire. Weaver blinds the creature with a flare, allowing Conrad to lure it away. Kong uses a boat propeller as a weapon, impaling the big one and ramming it into the cliff, knocking Weaver into the river. Kong slashes the creature's throat with the propeller, seemingly killing it. He rescues Weaver, but the big one, still alive, attacks again. Kong tears out its tongue and innards, finally killing it. With the threat eliminated, Kong gently sets Weaver down, and Conrad checks on her. Kong briefly looks at the survivors before walking away, allowing them to leave. As helicopters arrive to take the survivors home, Kong watches from afar, beating his chest and roaring in victory. Marlowe returns home, reuniting with his wife and meeting his now-grown son. He enjoys a beer and a hot dog while watching his favorite sports on TV. Later, Conrad and Weaver are held by the Monarch. Brooks reveals they have been recruited by the organization and shows them archived footage of cave paintings depicting other monsters, including a bipedal This movie that centered on a team of soldiers and scientists stranded on Skull Island during a mission to map its geological interior with explosive charges, a highly Show Me the Monster film. The monsters are impressively designed and animated, with the visual and sound effects teams convincingly bringing these CGI beats, though it's unclear what those are. Laden with pop culture references and political allegories that seem poised to coalesce into something meaningful but ultimately don't, the film feels cluttered. Director Vought Roberts has mentioned that the film serves as a parable of the US military's entanglement in the Vietnam jungles. Underscored by numerous references to classic Vietnam War movies, particularly Oliver Stone's Platoon and Francis Coppola's Apocalypse soundtracks, he incorporates elements of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, naming one character Marlowe. Thank you very much for watching the whole video. And if you have a movie or TV show that you want us to cover, just comment it down below. We'll make a video of it in the future. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out our playlist for more recaps.